Welcome into another edition of New Track Record Podcast. Caleb Hatch, Justin Kinney with you from the WELT studios. It's championship time. We have Detroit, the Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix to recap. And as much as it has been all season, one of two winners.
Yeah.
And this time it is Kyle Kirkwood getting the win as he continues his dominance on the street courses. This year, winning at Long Beach and now at Detroit. Before we dive into everything, hi, Justin.
Hello, Caleb. We were talking before we started recording about our weekend plans. I'm kind of glad there's no race. Sometimes you just need a break.
Yes.
3-week breaks, but, a week or two here or there because we're completionists. Well, especially me. Like, I watch, I don't know why, every practice session for lights qualifying.
You're way more dedicated than me. I do not catch lights. I mean, I got to have a reason to watch for that, and that championship is over.
Dennis Hauger's running away with it. But the point being, it's a lot to watch every practice session and every qualifying session and the race for both lights and IndyCar. Like, it's difficult. I didn't even finish the race until I think, Tuesday? So, look, I need a break. It's been full go for the entire month of May with 3 races and now Detroit. So, a well-deserved time off, not just for the teams, but I feel like at least you and I. It's good to have a break.
If us, being lazy podcasters, need a break, then yes, the teams need a break.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll discuss too maybe our ideal post 500 schedule as part of this podcast, because you and I were kind of trading texts and ideas. But post Detroit, it's nice to have a week off. That's for sure.
Oh, definitely. All right, let's get into the race. Kyle Kirkwood gets his second win of the season. Santino Ferrucci keeps second despite a penalty. And I think it's funny when you talk about his penalty. It's not like the other penalties we have seen this year.
Penalties or not all infractions are created equal.
Correct. Keeping the second place finish, which is a career best for Ferrucci. $25,000 fine for the entry. 25 championship driver and entrant points as well. Bonus point for leading a lap, not awarded, and ineligible for engine points and prize money associated with the race. The reason, the number 14, the driver ballast, needed to bring the combined weight of the driver and driver ballast to 185 pounds underweight, not within the driver ballast weight tolerance of 0 to plus 1 pound. Also, during inspection, the weight of the car was 10 pounds over the minimum weight for road and street circuits of 1,785 pounds.
So it was heavier than what it could have been by 10 pounds, but still a violation. At least the former was a violation. And I think it's a big deal losing effectively 26 points when you're looking at the final standings, and Santino Ferrucci battling for a top 10 finishing position in the point standings. It's a big deal, but not as malicious as what we've dealt with this year and last year. And do you get a feeling that Tech is trying to flex its muscles a little bit now?
Yes. Oh, it definitely feels like with inspections that they basically got caught. Tech itself, I'm talking a phrase, they weren't caught obviously in terms of cheating, but they were caught in not enforcing their own rule book, which is kind of laughable. And so now they're cracking down, and I think that's a Doug Bowles thing. He's kind of made it, hey, we're going to enforce the rules. It's kind of ridiculous that we weren't. And so I think Tech kind of got embarrassed with the whole attenuator fiasco, and now that's changed how they operate, which is, in my opinion, for the better. We should have been enforcing this stuff all along.
I agree. And with that, too, we've read that teams are even more stringent on making sure their cars are legal, knowing that Tech is in the mood right now to make an example of anyone and everyone, and to show that it can enforce its own rules. And Santino Ferrucci was a victim of that, and his team on Sunday.
But let's talk, and one final thought on Ferrucci. So he lost 26 points. So if he had gained and kept those 26 points, he's currently 14th in the standings.
He would have been 10th, wouldn't he?
He would be in 10th place.
Right.
So it goes to show you how important those points are.
Kind of gloss over, at least he got to finish or keep his second place finish. Yeah, but he dropped 4 spots in the points, and it's a big deal when you're a team like Foyt and trying to get earn a top 10 finish in the standings for the first time in forever.
Well, last year he was top 10.
Yeah, back-to-back top 10s.
Yes.
Phenomenal.
Yes, it would. All right, let's start with our 3 things. And I think the first takeaway is Andretti as a team, and Kyle Kirkwood in particular, clearly have a leg up on the field on street circuits. I don't know what else to say, but he has got the right package for these courses. Second win for him of the season. Yes, Alex Palou had some bad luck. We'll get to that. But I think with Kirkwood, I mean, he's showing what we said a couple years ago when we thought he was the best driver on this team, and continuing to show that this year. I get that last year he went winless, but last year was his most consistent season up until this season. So I think he continues to show why he was a stud coming through all the junior ranks, and you just wonder, can he also, with 2 wins this year, kind of get more star power? Because I just don't feel like he's got the star power. I feel like that could come.
Well, I think, and we've discussed it before about Colton Herta, and can he be a championship driver? And we discussed last week whether he's consistent enough. But I feel like we're at a place now where Kyle Kirkwood feels like that alpha, at least this year, and he showed signs of it last year as being the alpha at Andretti. And it was another great drive from him at Detroit, leading, 46, 48 laps, something like that. 48 is what the number I got. And just looking like a dominant performance. Like you mentioned, Colton Herta had the speed. Kyle Kirkwood had the speed. You felt like, barring mistake or mistakes, it was going to be an Andretti day, and they capture 2 of the top 3 spots, and Kyle Kirkwood does what he needs to do. And I think what's most impressive with Kyle Kirkwood is he's winning at places where one mistake can be everything. And he is showing just how precise he can be on narrow street courses, and it's been very impressive with both of his wins this year. I mean, can he string together some wins and challenge Alex Palou for the title? I'm not exactly sure about that, but I think when we start looking at who's the next big American driver, because Joseph Newgarden isn't that young whippersnapper anymore, Kyle Kirkwood, with every win, is making more of a case of him being that guy, that face of young open wheel American racing in the coming years.
4 wins already in his career, all on street courses. I think the next evolution is obviously him winning on a road course or an oval, and he at least had that oval pole at Nashville to wrap up last year and had a good car, a good race there. But we're seeing a guy who I think, to me, he's just Ryan Hunter-Reay 2.0. Florida guy, loves the water, being on the water. Not flashy, but he is, when he is on, he is practically unbeatable, especially on these street courses.
Well, and he's just so, like I mentioned, so precise, so cerebral in what he does. And this isn't unexpected.
No.
To your point, right? I mean, he dominated F2000. He dominated Indy Pro 2000. He dominated Indy Lights in successive seasons. Although I guess 2020 was kind of abbreviated. I don't even think they had a season that year for Indy Lights, if I remember.
No.
Or Indy Pro 2000. But pretty much he ran 1 year in F2000, 1 year in Indy Pro 2000, 1 year in Indy Lights, and won all 3 championships. And at the time, we were talking about the most can't-miss prospect I would say at least since Joseph Newgarden, but even maybe further back in terms of the dominance displayed in the road to Indy. I mean, you kind of look at Linus Lundqvist as a similar person since then, but I mean, the dominance that Kyle Kirkwood showed, you felt, okay, he's going to be the dude. He starts his career at Foyt when Foyt was really nowhere to be found, right?
Yeah, and it was a struggle, but once he got to Andretti, he wins 2 races.
His first year, right?
First year.
Had a drought last year in terms of not winning a race. Now he's won twice this year. So on track, you feel, for a guy that proved he could be the dude in major open wheel racing by winning at every level of the ladder, and still just 26 years old. And you feel like with every successive win, he's maybe the dude that could be a consistent championship contender at Andretti year after year. Not necessarily Colton Herta. In a perfect world, both of them are.
Yes.
Right? I don't know if we're there yet with Andretti, but Kyle Kirkwood definitely making the case this year as the only other driver to win outside of Alex Palou.
Which, I mean, it's pretty crazy. You talk about we've only had 2 drivers win, and you have to go back to 1980 kart season. The last time that was the case. You want to guess the 2 drivers who...
In 1998?
1980.
Oh, gosh. 1980. I'll say Mario.
Nope.
AJ?
Nope.
Oh, really? Sheesh. Rick Mears?
Nope.
JR?
Yes, one of them.
Rutherford was one?
Yep.
Unser?
Which Unser?
Senior?
No.
Robbie?
No.
Bobby?
Bobby, yes. Yes.
I get
Johnny
Robbie
Rutherford
and, confused.
and Bobby Unser won. Only drivers to win in the first 8 races. That's that courtesy of Clay Carter, 19 on social media. So it goes to show you how unique this season has been. And let's not forget, Honda's now 7 for 7 winning races this year.
You hope that has something to do with their decision to hopefully stay in IndyCar. Who knows if it does, but it's been a tremendously exceptional display. Now, when we look at the last time Team Penske went this long without a win, it was 2021. I don't know how many races we were in. I think their first win came at Mid-Ohio in 2021. Was that the 8th race, the 9th race that season?
I am checking.
But it was a while, so we're not there yet in terms of drought to start a season for Team Penske, but we're nearing that drought number. Was it 8th race?
He won the 9th race at Road America.
Who won it?
Or wait, no, sorry. 8th race, Detroit 2, back when they had...
Okay. So we don't have to go too far back.
Wait, no, sorry, I was looking at the wrong category. Hang on.
What is going on over there?
You had... Yes, 10th race was Mid-Ohio.
All right, so you have a couple more races to reach the level of futility that we saw in 2021 with Team Penske, at least.
And they only won 3 races as a team that season. Newgarden won 2, Power won 1.
Okay, so let's say they won 3 that year, didn't win their first till the 10th race. If you had to set the over-under at 2.5, Penske wins this year, are you taking over and under or under?
I'll take over.
Okay.
We're not quite halfway through. I think that will change. I think they'll get some wins.
As soon as Gateway?
I mean, think about it. We have all the short ovals left.
Correct, of which...
Road America, Penske always seems to do really well at as well. I mean, that's coming up.
Yeah.
Along with the first short oval at Gateway. So I think we'll see 3 or more.
All right.
What's your number one?
My number one, let's talk about Santino Ferrucci a little bit. And we were kind of waiting for him to maybe have the drive that he had on Sunday in terms of his first ever podium. Strategy helped, for sure. But it wasn't just strategy. I mean, this was legit pace, especially to hold on to second place after the final restart. And for him to do what he did and finish second, I think it was a mailbag question of why Malukas and not Ferrucci when you talk about Team Penske. And Marshall Pruitt's correct in saying the volatility. I mean, David Malukas is, well, I don't know if David Malukas is more Penske as much as Santino Ferrucci is not Penske.
He's not, yeah. Now, he was a Penske driver for that one.
He was a fill-in.
For
right?
2 days. And he didn't actually drive for them, but he was the fill-in driver. Newgarden came back in time.
Correct. That's right.
So keep that in mind.
Yes. As maybe a reserve driver, so to speak, for Penske, maybe, but not as a consistent driver. But as you look at Santino Ferrucci's career, going from 19th in points to 9th to now 14th with kind of an asterisk because of that penalty. I mean, Santino Ferrucci, based on my question, is he in line to get a better ride in the near future?
I feel like he has a good ride.
Yeah. I mean, well, let's say with a more powerful team, could you see him at an Andretti or McLaren at some point?
Maybe McLaren. I just don't know if he meshes with those teams.
I know he doesn't mesh, but results surpass any type of, especially when you look at McLaren, who you know with every year without a 500 win and every year without a championship becomes more and more antsy, particularly with their dominance in Formula One. And you wonder if McLaren gets to a point where you're like, you know what, we don't care about, well, we care about attitude or how you carry yourself, but at the same time, we need somebody that's going to come here and be a little spunky. And maybe that's Ferrucci, not saying it's in for 2026, but maybe beyond. But I just think if he can continue to race the way he's raced, and let's be real, I mean, I guess since last year, him and Kirkwood, he hasn't had any issues, right?
No.
I mean, I think he's calmed down a little bit compared to other drivers, but
I think so. And I think the other thing is he has a teammate who is truly challenging him for the first time at Foyt. And for the most part, I mean, yes, Indy 500 notwithstanding, I mean, he's outperformed his teammate. And his teammate's the one who's getting all the hype, you know, obviously to potentially replace Will Power, which I still think is perhaps a bit premature. Now, you could argue, well, Malukas had the Indy 500 result, and ultimately that's what matters. But
that's the only result he has.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a big result, but it's the only result he has. But
I mean, he did have his best qualifying position starting second at Detroit, but I mean, he also punted Alex Palou and ruined his race. So
yeah, not ideal, although maybe even Penske Corp likes that too, taking out the dominant Chip Ganassi driver. But I just feel like Santino Ferrucci, I'm not saying he's being underappreciated, but maybe with drives that he's putting together, if he continues to do it, I feel like it's going to open up an opportunity for him somewhere, as long as he doesn't revert back to former ways, not on the track, but off the track. Just, he's avoided drama for the fair part of a year, and I think that's been very impressive. It's a maturing Santino Ferrucci, and we'll see. That's obviously led to a better driving Santino Ferrucci. Could it open up some doors for him as well?
I would like to think it would, but when he had the opportunity to go to Rahal and he was, you know, running there part-time and getting great results, but then ultimately passed over for Jack Harvey and the Hy-Vee ride, and obviously it did not work with Jack Harvey in that car. It did with Christian Lundgaard, but then Hy-Vee ultimately left the sport, which those things happen when you have CEO leadership changes and whatnot.
Yep.
And they were in the sport for what, like 5 years, basically 4 or 5 years.
Right.
So, but he was passed up there after his results last year. I mean, he returned to Foyt. I just feel like other teams have had the opportunity to do something and have not, which I guess is as telling as the fact that he's getting these results in a Foyt car and still not getting more interest, is the fact that, yes, there have been chances for other teams to snap him up, and they simply have not.
But part of that could have been maturity or lack thereof, and I think the more he can fly straight and put up good results, maybe another opportunity presents himself.
Oh, for sure. Let's talk Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing.
Sure, let's do it.
So it was not a good day. You had Louis Foster with the suspension failure and the scary crash with Felix Rosenquist. Thankfully, both drivers are okay, but another tub completely written off, including Sato's Indy 500 open test tub that was written off. You have Graham Rahal with more pit stop issues. Looked like a wheel nut issue for him. And then Devlin DeFrancesco had the wheel issue, right? Where his wheel just came off.
Well, I don't think the nut even got on for DeFrancesco.
I mean, after you felt like there was, I don't want to say like momentum, but you felt good after the Indy GP. And all three drivers in the Fast Six, and Graham getting a good result in a race that you felt like he had a chance to win. They just got the tire strategy wrong. And then you come to Detroit, they have speed right away. Graham gets a Fast Six, obviously the engine penalty, so he's backed up. But man, it feels like every time with this team, it's one step forward, two steps back, right?
And that was what made it difficult for me to buy into any type of carryover from Indy into the rest of the season. And we saw it, two drivers make the Fast 12. Rahal was in the Fast 6, but then got penalized, right?
And Foster was en route to his best career finish and then had the suspension.
Yeah, nothing on him, just a break. And whether, I'm not going to blame RLL, I guess, for the heartbreaking, because then it was either the series or Dallara put out a notice to make sure all teams were checking that part for deficiencies or whatever. But that happens, and then pit lane issues. You don't even get the nut on for Devlin DeFrancesco, and then you have slow issues on Graham Rahal and effectively kills his race. So,
I mean, again, Graham was competing at that time for the win on strategy.
Yes, he was up there, and that's why it's just maybe we take for granted the teams that just execute every time, all the time. And it's mainly Penske and Ganassi, right, in terms of the pits and stuff. And sure, stuff happens to those teams. But Andretti is Exhibit A Andretti may be Exhibit A. I think Rahal may be Exhibit B on just, if you don't have your crap in order in the pits, you have no chance.
Like, it's one thing to be slow. It's another... like some of the smaller teams are going to have slower pit stops, but they get everything, essentially
correct
on. But it's another to have these issues when you're a more top-level team in terms of financing. I mean, McLaren's been excellent in the pits over the years.
Yes.
Give them credit for that. No one can compete with Penske on pit stops or Ganassi, but McLaren does compete with them on it.
They do.
So I think that says something. But yes, it maybe we need to reframe it, like you said, how good those three teams are with pit stops. So we don't talk about pit issues except when it happens, because it rarely happens.
Well, my dad has said this before, and I've kind of like scoffed, and then the more you think about it, it makes sense. Like if the fastest pit stops are 10 seconds, but you're more prone to make mistakes trying to do it as fast as you can, then isn't it better to go a little slower, say 13 or 14 seconds, and make sure you get everything right? Especially if you're a team that has consistent errors in the pits. I know the natural inclination is to do everything as fast as you can, but if you can't do it as fast as you can and not make mistakes, then slow down. And
it's an interesting point. I mean, it goes against everything that racing's about.
Exactly. But you're almost kind of, you can watch pit stops and you can see obviously the Juncos and the Premas aren't going to be going as fast as the Penskes and Ganassis, but maybe there's too much of, I'm going to do everything as fast as I can, because the mistakes far outweigh the penalty that you would have by just being 3 or 4 seconds late. But making
even a second late.
Right, yeah. It's just, to me...
slow is fast. I forget, I think one of the teams actually kind of has that mantra.
Steady wins the race, right?
Or pit stops is like, slow down, don't rush through, and you'll actually be faster.
And I think that's for the new teams, a Juncos, a Prema, DRR at Indy or something. That's a good mantra to live by. Maybe RLL needs to adopt that. Be like, look, let's slow down a little bit. Let's make sure everything's getting done. And maybe we lose 1 or 2 spots in a pit sequence, but it's better than losing 10 or 15 spots or getting a DNF when we're sending cars out there that aren't ready.
Can you imagine being an RLL fan listening to this podcast? Like, do you hate us? Do you agree with us? Like, here's the thing. We hold them to a higher standard because they, as a team, should be within the top 3 or 4 teams in the series, period. And
they want to be held to a higher standard. They've added investments and all that stuff. But,
I mean, like, Foyt, we used to dog on them all the time, but they figured it out. They got the Penske partnership. They've improved their driver lineup. They have 2 drivers there. I mean, you can't quite say one's not a quote-unquote ride buyer because, I mean, Penske, for all we understand,
financed
Malukas in that seat for this year, which is fine.
Right.
I mean, Malukas is a talented enough driver. It's not like he's
right. He's not a guy that shouldn't be in the series simply because he bought his way in.
Correct.
But yeah, initially when you say that, you're like, well, that's stupid. Of course you want to go as fast as you can. But especially when it happens so much when RLL could be a factor. You go back to a couple years ago when Rahal was so fast at the 500 and the wheel falls off.
Yes.
Right? You look at the most recent example at Detroit. It's just they throw away. They have very few opportunities to begin with, but when they do, it seems like they throw it away more often than not in the pits, and that's a shame. And I don't know if it's, hey, you need to invest more money into getting better pit crew. I don't know. But maybe it's just, hey, slow down. Let's make sure we get everything done. The wheel nuts are all on and secure. And then we lower the car and release. And let's just take our time a little bit. It like you said, sounds like an anti to everything involved in racing. But would it be beneficial to Rahal because they're burned so much?
I know that when you're rushing through a pit stop, that's when mistakes happen.
Correct.
It's better to secure everything and make sure you're getting the task at hand done, as opposed to, like, anytime you try to rush through something, you screw up,
exactly.
Right? I mean, it's just human.
Whether it's you're at work or learning to play an instrument or whatever, you have to slow things down and then slowly speed them up. And I just don't know if RLL just needs to go back to basics in that respect in terms of its pit crews.
We're so hard on them because they have the potential to be great. And I guess it was a frustrating race day after more potential on the weekend. I mean, it's not often that they have a driver in the Fast Six. It's not often that...
It's the first time since 2019 that Graham Rahal was in the Fast Six?
On a street course.
On a street course, yeah.
Yes.
That's 6 years.
Yeah. And remember, at Detroit, and this has been a long time ago, and this was in his peak, his prime, which to me for Graham Rahal is 2015 to 2017, but he had a pole and a second place starting position and won both races at Detroit in 2017. And granted, that was a Belle Isle, but still. I mean, yes, it's been 8 years, but they are capable of this.
Yeah. If you want to be taken seriously, of which RLL wants to be taken seriously as a contender in this series, then we're going to treat you like one. And like we do with Andretti, we call out Andretti when there's errors. And it's deserving because of the massive amounts of equity that have been invested in that team. For RLL, if you want to be taken seriously, if you want a seat at the big table, then you have to execute like you're at the big table. And they don't, unfortunately.
Is it time for your number 2 or number 3?
It's my number 2. Let's talk about Alex Palou. Okay. Wasn't his fault.
No.
But eventually the randomness of racing catches up to you. Punted into the wall by David Malukas. I don't feel like this result brings us any closer to any type of competition for the championship. And I think that deserves to be pointed out because now if this starts a trend, of course, then okay, maybe. But if this is a blip on the radar, cool. But I think as we look at the schedule, things open up, literally, in terms of these tracks. You get hit once at Detroit, more than likely you're going to be put into the wall. Plenty more runoff area at places like Mid-Ohio and Portland and Laguna Seca and Road America and stuff like that, not to mention ovals. So the chances of this happening again are lessened because the only street course we have left is Toronto, correct? Yes.
Yes.
So that's kind of how I look at this is, yes, it was a bad result for Alex Palou, but that bump pretty much anywhere else on the schedule doesn't take you out of the race. But at a street course, it's going to be fatal, and it was. And so I sit here in no different position in terms of the championship as I was a week ago, despite that 25th place finish.
Now, has the window opened? Yes, the slightest amount.
Yeah, it's creaked open a little bit. Maybe you've even unlocked the window. You haven't even started. I'm doing the motion where you would have to. The
window crank.
Yeah, the window crank. I don't even think it's open yet, but you've unlocked it, and maybe you'll start uncranking it if something happens at Gateway. But it was unfortunate. It's what happens on street courses with the narrowness of the track. Just a bad mistake by David Malukas, and Alex Palou paid for it. But is it the start of a trend? I don't think so.
This would have to happen one more time before 5 races to go. And also within that same race, either Pato O'Ward or Kyle Kirkwood or whoever is, up in the top 3, the Lundgaard obviously up there, they would either have to win. I mean, basically they have to podium or better.
Right.
For me to feel like they took advantage of the fact. I mean, if Palou's going to have another 20th or worse finish this year, which I think is highly unlikely, these other guys have to podium to take advantage.
Well, the problem is if you would say, okay, Kyle Kirkwood maximized his potential by winning this race. He's 3rd in points. But Pato O'Ward finishes 2nd. He needs to make up more points. Now, the point last week was what? He has to gain 10 more points per race.
Yes, on average.
So mission accomplished at Detroit, but you feel like that's got to happen time and time and time and time again. I mean, it will have to be extraordinarily bad luck for Alex Palou to really allow this championship to open back up. And he doesn't race for RLL, so you can't count on pit mistakes for Alex Palou. So we'll see if he bounces back at Gateway, but I don't feel like this championship is any more open than it was a week ago.
No, I don't think so. I think there's the slightest crack open of the window. If this happens again, say at Gateway, and then we can talk. I mean, if we're talking about another 5-point day for Alex Palou and Pato or Lundgaard or Kirkwood win the race, then, I mean, it's basically down to essentially a 1-race lead, which means it's possible, but you can't keep going with the way Alex Palou is gone in terms of prior to this and feel like he's in any trouble at all.
And he really was having a steady day before. It wasn't like he was running 21st or something.
No, it was going to be a top 5.
So he was in position to get a really good finish, and it was just bad luck. So it happens. What about your number 3?
My number 3. So talking about holding teams to a higher standard, and we discussed that Penske is now winless through the first, 7 races? 7 races on the year. If we hold him to a higher standard, Will Power's 5th, and he's been very mixed bag, right? It's boom or bust for him. He was MIA in the Indy 500. He had the crash to open the season at St. Pete. Since, 6th place or better every other race. And he had a good run at Detroit. Scott McLaughlin punted Nolan Siegel, which caused a Twitter firestorm. We'll get to that later. 12th place finish. Obviously, we talked about his Indy 500. He's been very boom or bust this year. Joseph Newgarden somehow got a 9th, and that was after he pretty much was MIA during this race as well. And I think for me, Newgarden's having a bad year, and I think we just need to talk about it more. With the team as a whole, yes, you have all the behind-the-scenes stuff. Like, I still think they're going to recover, but it's still shocking that we're talking. I'm not sure what is more shocking, that Chevy hasn't won a race yet or that Penske hasn't won a race yet. I guess I'd lean towards Chevy being slightly more shocking, but either one, it's astounding.
You would think, I mean, Chevy effectively, when you look at it, McLaren and Team Penske that haven't won a race. But
yes,
outside of that third place finish at St. Pete to start the season, 9th place at Detroit is Joseph Newgarden's best finish of the season. Just absolutely crazy. And I don't know what the answer is when you look at Penske. I think the easy answer would be to blame Will Power, but he's the best Penske driver
fifth
right
in
now.
the championship right now.
So I think Penske was looking at this year as being a clear indicator that Will Power was declining and Malukas was going to slide in. Yet the fact of the matter is Will Power is racing better than any of his teammates in terms of McLaughlin and Joseph
This was
Newgarden.
supposed to be the breakout year for Scott McLaughlin in terms of the championship.
And you felt like Indy was going to be that potentially with Scott McLaughlin after being on pole last year, and it wasn't, obviously. Tragic result. Joseph Newgarden just hasn't even been in the picture all year. I mean, just the other two drivers have had their moments. Joseph Newgarden has just had nothing.
Yeah, St. Pete was his moment. And yes, the Indy 500 driving through the field, but you don't have the result. No one's going to really remember that 10 years from now.
How much of the behind-the-scenes drama over the last year and a half has impacted Penske on track?
A lot.
Yes.
A lot.
And this was even before Tim Cindric and company were ousted. I really think, and the professional organizations can say what they want and, it's still business as usual. It's not. It's not. And the scrutiny and the real questioning of the entire organization and how they go about things has definitely made an impact on the on-track product. And you look at all three of these drivers, at least last year you had flashes. Obviously, Joseph Newgarden winning the 500 was the primary one. But through the first 7 races this season, one podium, 2 podiums? I think Will Power has one. Scott McLaughlin have a podium? Yeah, he does. I think each of them have one, if I remember right. That's not good.
Like when a Penske driver's not top 10 in points and we're several races into the season, like is the case with Joseph Newgarden, like it's not a good season.
And this isn't like, they haven't won a race, but they've been piling up second and third place finishes, so they're close. They're not close.
Are we also ready to talk about Joseph Newgarden is a great driver, right? But outside of the Indy 500 and short ovals, like, is he really a championship threat anymore? Am I crazy for saying that?
I don't know if
I'm talking about recent results. Yes, I get that he had that string of second place finishes, but it's seemingly going downhill. Well, I don't know if it's all the behind the scenes stuff.
True. I mean, ever since he became more insular and
true
race, that was that big deal. What was it last year, 2 years ago? Where it's oh my gosh, he deleted everybody from social media. I was like, this is kind of overblown. But he finished second in 2022 in the championship. Since then, I think it's been a top 5.
5th, 8th, 12th.
There's a clear regression going on there. And look, Indy 500s are always going to be top of mind for Penske. But let's say he finishes out of the top 10 in points this year.
Which won't happen.
Well, I mean, we've got 10 races left. We're 7 races in. If you would have told me through 7 races, Joseph Newgarden would have been 12th in points, I also would have told you that's not going to happen.
True.
So who knows?
True.
But at the same time, even in the top 8, let's say Joseph Newgarden's not in the top 8 in the final standings. Not saying they're getting rid of him, but I think some really big questions need to be asked in the offseason of Joseph Newgarden, of that team. And I really think maybe we're glossing over the importance of the hire to replace Tim Cindric, because this is a team that is as discombobulated as it has been in recent memory.
And it's not being talked about because of the Plo dominance, because of the penalties, because of the hybrid, all these other factors. But I think, say we get past Gateway and we get past Road America and we get to Mid-Ohio, yeah, everyone's going to be talking. If that's the case,
right? Which,
again, I'd still be very surprised. I'd still think Penske wins at least one of these next two races. I mean, between Gateway and Road America, these are two tracks that Penske, in particular Joseph Newgarden, have excelled at. So
yeah, and then you get to Iowa, which you can pencil them in for at least one win there, right? So there are some Penske-friendly tracks coming up, but I mean, how often have we said, well, we just need to get to the portion of the schedule where Penske runs well at? Like, Penske runs well everywhere. This is a given. Not this year.
Not this year. All right, what's your third?
Well, let's talk. I mean, he kind of talked about it with Will Power, but let's talk about Will Power's antics over the weekend, predominantly in practice. And it was at practice 1.
Yes.
And we talked about Tech really stepping up and starting to penalize people. Do you think there was a penalty warranted for what he did to Kyle Kirkwood?
Absolutely.
And the fact that there wasn't one bothersome.
Yes, because that sets a precedent that you can just do that and it's fine.
Now, not only was it that move that kept being replayed throughout the weekend, but I think it was in the same practice where he went in the runoff and didn't even turn the car around. Like, he just put it in reverse and backed up onto the track, which is a big no-no. It just felt like, and I initially messaged you and said this, and then Townsend Bell or James Hinchcliffe, one of them brought it up, presumably because they hacked one of our phones and saw the text, is this reckless abandon because Will Power has been told that he's out next year at Penske? Now, Will Power said that is not the case. He has not had any conversations, blah, blah, blah. But you still wonder, because that attitude that he took into the weekend just seemed to be the I don't care what goes on now because I'm out anyway type thing. Or we know that aggression that Will Power can show, sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a bad way. It just felt like something was on his mind, at least through practice 1, didn't it?
Yes, he does do this seemingly once a season. Where just
right, where he just kind of goes off the deep end?
Something goes off and everyone's like, what? What just happened?
And hindsight being undefeated, when his wife was going through all those health issues, like, okay, well, that makes sense,
Yeah, you could explain, Road America with Dixon, you could explain that away.
Right. I don't know. Maybe there was a doctor appointment that didn't go too well earlier in the week for his wife, something like, I don't know, but it was just, it's weird. It's weird. And with Will Power's seat presumably hot, of which you and I agree it shouldn't be to begin with in our opinion.
No.
You wonder if maybe he's getting an inkling. Maybe he was officially been told, but he's seeing more and more signs that, maybe this is coming to an end this year. And he's just kind of go out there. Now, it was interesting that even the day after, seemingly all was good between Kirkwood and...
I think all was good because Kirkwood didn't touch the wall.
Well, yeah, I think if you put him in the wall, it's a different story.
Yeah.
It goes to Kirkwood's ability to save it in such a small confined area, which was admirable. But I don't know. It was funky. And maybe after the season, we look back and say, well, if the story starts coming out where he's gone and it's post Indy, so that's really when you start zeroing in on what next year's lineup is going to be for some of these teams. You wonder if, even if it was a throwaway comment from another team that said, hey, we've heard it's ending at Penske for you. Would you be interested in coming over to us for 26? Something as simple as that could potentially rub Will Power the wrong way. So I don't know, but it was odd. That's for sure.
Here's a fun little stat for you. You want to guess the last time Will Power had a top 10 finish in the Indy 500?
The last time he won?
No.
The one time he won?
Not quite. It would have been 2019 where he finished 5th. He has finished...
The year after he won.
Yes. So he has finished, this is starting in 2020, 14th, 30th, 15th, 23rd, 24th, and 16th at Indy.
Not ideal.
No.
And that more than anything,
and can
cost you a Penske ride.
Yes, it's been between either crashes or like this year the 500 where he was just riding around. Like he was not a factor whatsoever.
He was out for the drive.
Like I saw him go by and I'm like, oh, I guess there's Will Power. Like he was pretty much in the back. He moved up due to attrition.
Right.
He didn't make any, on track.
And isn't that what he said? He didn't pass a single car on track.
I think that was a Barber.
Okay.
Where he said, yeah, I didn't pass a single car on track and still had a good result. But that was more hybrid related.
Correct.
Based on the questioning.
Those results are going to cost you within Team Penske more than lack of championship contention. And Joseph Newgarden is still in that that period in which the back-to-back Indy 500s have bought him grace. Will Power, I think, is no longer in that grace period. And maybe that more than anything, those results you just mentioned is reason for the rumors in which he could be out of that seat at year's end.
And when your biggest competition gets a career best finish, I mean, that's not going to help your cause.
At the biggest race.
Yeah,
that was the thing. It's like pre-500, you and I were like, that's crazy to think that Malukas is going to replace Power. Post-500, with what each of them did, you go, okay, well, if anything, Penske puts a lot of stock into what you do and don't do at the 500. So maybe even just reading the room has Will Power a little peeved.
Could be. Anything else that you took away from Detroit?
It was an exciting Detroit race by Detroit standards, I would say. I think it feels rushed racing the week after the 500. We're still consuming the 500, even one that I guess lacked late drama. Monday night you have the
banquet,
and then all the it comes out with media tour and all that stuff, and it just feels like rushed. I think in a perfect world, the week after the 500 does not have a race, and I think the week after you should come back and be at a super speedway.
If they're gonna not race right after, yes, you need to be at a super speedway because as people pointed out on social media, here's our great big super speedway race. Oh, wait, we don't race at any more of these the rest of the year. Like, that is a problem. It's a problem.
Not just one. We don't race one
it's not
after
just
the
about,
500. Like, that's the only one.
Yeah, it's not just about ovals. It's that you don't race at Texas. You don't race at Pocono. You don't race at Michigan. Fontana's gone. Like, you don't race at Homestead.
Right? I mean, Phoenix. Even.
I mean, Phoenix is a short oval, but
right,
at least.
Yeah, but it's, they have to do all these disciplines, and one of them super speedway. It's like, no. You have to race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That's one.
Yeah.
It's not super speedways plural. There's
one.
one. So, yes. But I think in an ideal world, it just, not just for the teams, and I know that's part of their job, and I'm not making excuses, but at the same time, like, it's such an emotional drain and physical drain to go through those 3 weeks in May that even me, it's like, man, another race right now.
Well, and the issue this year with the schedule, you have Barber on May 1st. Like, that's, I think, a bigger part of the problem.
You effectively had 4 races.
Yeah, in the month.
I mean, it was June 1st on Sunday. So
sorry, May 4th for Barber.
So within 28 days.
Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, Indy Quals, Carb Day Friday, Indy 500 on a Sunday. Like, I mean, not to mention all the practice days and all the sponsor commitments and everything else.
Credit to the drivers, though. They put on a good show, and it's a good recovery. I just feel like your biggest event deserves more time to process, and just felt like we don't have that the week after. But, personal
I'm good with it if you're going to go to a super speedway. Otherwise,
to go to another super speedway. Period.
Yes.
Regardless of when
put on a good show that these cars were designed to do, and I guess that's maybe a bigger conversation. My other thing I wanted to add: Kiffin Simpson, top 5 career best finish.
The Kiff,
really showing some results this year, and good for him.
Which is what was needed this year in year 2, for him. right now, 18th in points as we run. Last year was, what was he, 21st? So if he can get into top 16, I think that would be a phenomenal improvement for Kiffin Simpson.
I just think the more good results he has, the more your confidence increases, and that will just continue. But I thought that was a good drive from him, especially anytime you're racing in a typically chaotic street circuit and you get a good result. I mean, props to you, because it's hard. Detroit was entertaining, but I mean, it's a tough track.
You know, coming back around when we were talking about RLL, and you look at leader circle and who's below the cut line.
Not ideal.
The 51 of Coyne, okay, not unexpected.
Yeah, that car has no shot.
The 2 of Prema,
which they're not eligible.
Prema. And then you have the 45 and the 30. Both Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan cars right now, 23rd and 24th. That's what's so disappointing about that team. Every year they preach that, oh, we've invested more and blah, 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 and reallocated and brought in this, that, or the other. And here you are 7 races through, and you have 2 of your 3 cars that are out of the leader circle money right now. Prema, yes, not eligible to begin with, but still struggling. The 51 at Coyne,
which is not going to
with Jacob Abel, right? It's not going to make it
unless the engineering change results in him suddenly getting a spark. Which,
but
maybe. But when you miss a race, you're already
he's already 31 points behind the 24th spot. I mean, he's 38 points out of the leaders. I mean, it's a struggle. He's double digits behind Prema at this point. But RLL, once again, sitting in there in a position that is underperforming to the point where 2 of their 3 cars right now aren't getting leader circle money.
Not what you want.
It's tough to take a team seriously when that's the position you're in.
Anything else on Detroit?
No, I don't think so.
It was a good race. We'll get to rate the race here in a second. If you agree or disagree with us, and I'm sure there will be some disagreement on our takes, we'd love for you to interact with us. You can always find us on social media, on Twitter/X. We are IndyCar Podcast. Same on Instagram, on Facebook. Just search for New Track Record. You can email us, newtrackrecordpodcast@gmail.com. Send us your questions, comments, rants, whatever you have our way. And you can support us via Patreon, patreon.com/newtrackrecord. Thanks to Xavier and others for their support. And as always, download and listen on your favorite podcasting platform, whether that is Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, mailbag time. Let's start with Rate the Race. What would you rate the Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix?
I had it a 7.
Oh, okay. I would go 8.
Oh, really? Okay.
I mean, for Detroit standards on this
it's a
particular
curve, right on a curve a little bit.
circuit, it was entertaining. Yeah, we didn't have a thrilling finish, but I mean, we had plenty of action. We had several leaders.
I felt like it was
different strategies.
It was the best race since going back to downtown. I felt.
I would agree.
Best race in a while at Detroit. Period. I feel like. So it was really good.
Yeah. So listeners on Rate the Race, 7.945.
So it's closer to you.
Yeah.
Than me. So
either way, good stuff.
Pretty good race, and probably one of the more exciting races of the season overall.
Oh, without a doubt. Elsewhere on the mailbag this week, as we go back to entries from prior to race weekend and some comments on last week's podcast. Let's see here.
All agreeing with us, I presume?
Yeah. We'll save that one for Tweets of the Week on the Will Power incident. Here we go. This from Lynn_IndyCar. Said, great 500 podcast. Had to laugh at your Ilmore comment about Honda leaving due to Penske ownership of Ilmore. Do you remember this? Now, Honda mentioned it in an article as an issue. Yep, Roger had ownership stake when those Ilmore engines branded as Honda.
So it's been a thing for a while, but now all of a sudden...
I mean, remember, it was HPD only with Ilmore making the engines 2006 through 2011. So
yeah, I just think it's an excuse.
Yes,
is what I take out of it.
Talking about the DeFrancesco and Foster at the front of Indy. This from Jeff Cerneski. Easiest way to move DeFrancesco and Foster from the front would have been a caution for debris. That's what NASCAR would have done.
That's true.
True.
Phantom caution. Also,
Jeff adds this. I feel for Scotty Mack. 32 other drivers managed to not wreck during the pace laps. Their C3s have more data about track conditions than any other team. Driver error caused them to hit the wall, not the lack of a morning warm-up. Let's keep race day traditional.
And I understand that for sure. It was a mistake to be sure, but it is also really difficult to not be on track for 2 days, especially when the conditions change so much sometimes at Indy.
For sure. And speaking of those cars, Nathan Moran had an article on IndyStar.com. Alex Plo was in favor of a change to IndyCar's blue flag rules regarding that. So something to keep in mind.
It's very tough to tell unlapped cars to just give up and be lapped.
Yes. It goes against racing, in my opinion.
I agree. And let's be real, this isn't a problem a lot.
No.
So
it's just that it happened in the Indy 500.
Right. It happened in the biggest race in the world. So I get people's concern. I don't know if outrage, you can go as far as outrage, but then again, it's just not happening all the time.
Elsewhere, let's see, other comments and thoughts on the mailbag. Unlimited Slip DF said IndyCar needs to be in Detroit, but that course is comically bad with its dimensions. A contemporary F1 car would simply nerf into both walls, wedge in, and block the track at several points in the lap. That's more of an indictment of how oversized F1 cars are to me, which they're starting to fix for next year.
Slowly, but I don't know why the size of F1 cars affects the opinion of a IndyCar track.
Yes.
I haven't watched the new downtown track since it was developed, and once said this course is too small for IndyCars. You just race more laps, but it's no more tight than Long Beach, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it's a shorter lap because it's 1.6 miles, which is tight for a street circuit, but they made it work. Look, the first year was messy in the practice sessions, but they made it work. So they can continue to do so.
Yeah, change in start zones this year maybe had helped. There's definitely places on track where only one car is going to get through at a time, like the S's and stuff, but I think there are places on every road course that's like that, or street course.
This from Jeff as well. Went to Target, picked up some Parkside cards, IndyCar trading cards.
Rub it in. I went over to the Target off Illinois Road here in Fort Wayne. No dice.
I often am at that Target, but usually it's for pickup. So,
yeah,
I haven't been inside for a few weeks.
I had some time to kill. I don't even know what I was doing, where I was going. I was picking something up, but I had time, so I swung by, and no luck. I don't know if there's anywhere in Fort Wayne you can get them, which is just silly. We're less than 2 hours away from Indianapolis. Target was supposed to have them. If they don't have them in your own backyard, then what's the point?
This from the Racer.com mailbag and some replies to this. Marshall Pruitt saying Honda will make its decision to stay in or leave IndyCar. He said, quote, I'd guess in the coming weeks. A couple of replies. Because_race said, find it odd that his articles on Racer.com are presented by Honda. Does not lend itself to objectivity. Look, it's a sponsorship. They sponsor every article.
Yeah, I don't
know. I wouldn't overthink that.
I'm not going to question Marshall Pruitt's journalistic integrity because of a sponsor at the bottom.
And he seems to have more of the inside info with Honda as it is. So,
right. I don't think he's been unfair in anything involving Honda.
That is a Racer sponsorship. They're not personally sponsoring Marshall, I guess.
Don't go out looking for issues that aren't there.
Pagoda Press said, good, let them go, and then select a formula that will help drive viewers. If the viewership goes up, manufacturers will come.
What's the format? What's the formula that draws in viewers for IndyCar?
I mean, the real answer is going back with more competition. But these teams can't afford that.
Well, what's this magical formula that all of a sudden people are going to start watching? And don't say loud engines. I'm not saying you in particular. I'm just speaking to the people that you got to change the formula. Okay, what formula is bringing people in to watch?
I mean, in a perfect world, you have multiple chassis manufacturers, but the problem with that is it just whittles itself down to one or two. They're
Correct.
actually competitive. You have multiple tire manufacturers, which once again whittles itself down to one because of not only safety but competition. You have multiple engine manufacturers, which, as we saw with the IRL, whittled itself down to one. Thank you, Honda, for dominating.
Yeah.
I mean, look, that's the reality, right?
Well, it's the same thing that happened with these universal aero kits, right? Everybody was going to have different ones. Well, once one finds an advantage, then everybody just copies it, right?
Chevy had the dominant aero kit over Honda, and then
Honda complained.
And it got a little better, and then they went to a universal aero kit again.
If I had to predict right now, today, what's going to happen, here's what I think. Honda's going to leave. IndyCar, for 1 year, is going to have spec engines through Ilmore. I think Toyota comes on board at some point, and we will still have 2 OEMs. But I could see there's being a year gap or something where there's only one.
I think IndyCar's back in another fully spec era for a few years. This feels like 2006 to 2011 all over again. I get that it's different because with that, part of that was, split still going on and then post-merger, but it feels like that happening all over again.
Whether overt or covertly, whether you're reading quotes or reading between the lines, neither one of which I'm very confident that Honda wants to stick around.
Yeah,
I just don't
I find it hard to believe they will. Even though they've dominated the season, won every race, won the Indy 500, they're going to have their third straight drivers' championship. They're going to finally win the manufacturers' championship again. And maybe what more could you have?
Maybe that's the bad thing. Maybe if they were struggling, be like, hey, we're not going to go out like this, right? But maybe they're thinking, hey,
we're going to go out on top.
Sure, but I just, as Marshall Pruitt said in the mailbag on Racer, is this decision has nothing to do with success or failure on the racetrack. It is the money invested, the return on investment, and the new one that they're seemingly throwing around, the conflict of interest between who owns the series and who's racing in the series. And there is a certain amount of fact to that, I understand, but also
this wasn't a problem before.
Right? It's just Honda's finding reasons to throw out there on why they want to leave or they're potentially going to leave. And I think
it feels like someone breaking up with someone and they're listing all these reasons when the real reason is they just don't want to be with them.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, they're in the relationship, they're going through the motions, but they really just don't want to be there.
Like, yeah, there are all these little things that maybe factor in, but the reality is like, no, we don't click or it's not working.
Right, yeah.
And it's that simple.
It's not you, it's me, Caleb.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
But that's kind of where I see this direction. Hopefully we're wrong, but I think we're going to find out in the next month or two whether Honda's in or out. And right now I feel like they're out.
Do we find out by Mid-Ohio, which is a month from now? I mean, that's a Honda-sponsored event.
I think if they're coming back, they announce by Mid-Ohio. I don't think announcing you're leaving is a good time at Mid-Ohio to say that.
No.
So if they stay, I think by Mid-Ohio. I think the further we get into the season with nothing,
more likely it is they're leaving.
I mean, even right now, I feel like with every day we go without hearing anything from Honda, the more likely it is they're gone.
One other thought on Honda. This from Sam at 27/1994. If they drag their feet this long, is that a good sign? Seems like they're out based on the issues with officiating, perhaps the unhappiness over the hybrid they so dearly wanted. I don't know. The longer it goes, the less I feel confident.
And I do feel that if Honda leaves, then the hybrid leaves as well.
Yes, I think that's very, very clear.
Would you be, my feelings on Honda. They keep moving the goalposts no matter what IndyCar does. It'll be terrible to lose them, but it's so frustrating that they're hem-hawing and playing these games. It's almost just like, you know what? If you're not having fun, then just leave and we'll figure it out. IndyCar's always figured it out. For better or for worse, they figured it out. If you don't want to be a part of this thing going forward, then just leave.
And Honda leaving would be devastating.
It absolutely would be. You made the point to me. The only thing worse would be Firestone leaving.
Yep.
So it would be absolutely crippling for IndyCar. But unfortunately, IndyCar and open wheel racing in the United States has gone through crippling after crippling over the years.
Yeah.
And still found its way. It has hurt the series tremendously to where it's, a fledgling series now, but it's always found a way to continue. And I have no doubt that it would continue even with Honda backed out.
At least the Indy 500's back. Maybe
True.
That's a positive sign. Hey, Indy 500's back in stature, and that's step one, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. The majority of people that attend the Indianapolis 500 and watch the Indianapolis 500 don't care if Honda's around or not.
Let alone they don't know or care that Detroit is the following week.
No, precisely.
But as we move into news and notes, Detroit got over 1 million viewers, which, hey, you get over 1 million.
Which we said last week, if they got over 1 million, we'd be surprised. And
yes, they did. 1.061 million viewers for Detroit, up 75% from 608,000 in 2024. Granted, that was on USA. Most watched IndyCar Series race from Detroit since 21. Peaked at 1.2 million viewers from 2:30 to 2:45, a.k.a. the finish, which is key, right? You want to be peaking then. And IndyCar on Fox through the first 7 races, averaging 2.173 million viewers, up 31% from 2024. Of course, that includes the Indy 500 and that bloated figure. Taking a look at previous Detroit races in 2023 on NBC, got 1.047 million. Then they had 2 races for several years before that. Taking a look at ratings across the board, the good news, Detroit got over 1 million. The bad news, the Spanish Grand Prix for F1 got 1.2 million viewers on ESPN, on cable, in the morning. The next race is the Canadian GP, which is June 15th, 2 Eastern on ABC. So that could have a pretty big number. Now, IndyCar did move their gateway race, so they're not in direct competition with the Canadian GP. So IndyCar, the next race, I think, is really going to say a lot. If you can't get 1 million plus viewers on Sunday night on network, that's bad.
Yeah, the hope is you get 1 million there. But also be interesting to follow the Canadian Grand Prix, which could be going head-to-head with the Indianapolis 500 next year if rumors prove to be true out of the F1 schedule.
This little nugget from Luke Smith, F1, who covers F1 for The Athletic. Canada could potentially clash head-to-head with the Indy 500 at the same time on the same day.
Not ideal for either.
No.
In my opinion. There are going to be a decent amount of people that will watch Formula One over IndyCar, so it will definitely hurt the Indianapolis 500. But don't expect to get a good number for the F1 race either. And
a positive for IndyCar, they did beat NASCAR Xfinity Series, which had their first race below 1 million on the CW, 988,000 for Saturday's Xfinity race at Nashville.
They had 13 straight?
13 straight, yes.
Man.
So the streak is over. Meanwhile, Cup on Prime, I don't think I actually saw.
It had about 2 million viewers, a little over 2 million viewers is what I saw.
Basically doing what's in line with what they get for cable races on FS1, for example.
Yeah.
But that's a look at TV numbers. Speaking of Nashville, tickets on sale for the Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix. Yes, it's an oval race. It can still be called Grand Prix. This happened in kart all the time. People upset on social media about this. But I think the part that's really good here, as Nathan Brown points out, weekend packages start at $70. Kids 12 and under are $10 for the weekend when accompanied by an adult ticket holder. IndyCar does a really good job, and with ovals, I get it. You can't just let kids in free just because of like seating purposes, but IndyCar does a great job of making it more family friendly for kids to attend, so that's cool. But obviously good to see that sponsor is still on board and that announced, and hopefully IndyCar can draw another good crowd at Nashville.
Let's hope so. It exceeded expectations last year. Let's see if that continues this year.
Speaking of other tracks, there's a rumor, the Orange Flag podcast says Mexico City is replacing Thermal in 2026. Hat tip to Hickey 93.
Was that the translated article?
Yes.
That I didn't spend time to translate?
Yeah, I didn't either.
I mean, not altogether unexpected.
No. Elsewhere, Portland tickets on sale now for the Portland GP, which is August 8th through 10th. Raceportland.com. That is where you can get your tickets.
Does that race have a title sponsor?
It is still BitNile.
Oh, okay.
BitNile.com,
Hopefully.
Grand Prix of Portland. That is still on the logo, right? Hopefully. More track news. Detroit, new 3-year deal with the city of Detroit through 2028, option for 3 more years.
That's good. I was watching the race Sunday, and the Renaissance Center is such a big-time backdrop, that part of town. I just wonder, last I saw, there was a plan to knock down the 2 skyscrapers beside the primary, which would be turned into a Marriott hotel, apparently.
I think one of them already is a hotel, right? Or okay, I'm not sure. I thought one of them already was a hotel.
Yeah, I think the latest plan I saw, the first 13 floors was still going to be retail and commercial, and then the 14th through whatever was going to be a hotel. But you know, if nobody doesn't know, like basically GM has moved its headquarters out of the RenCen. It's moved to what, Hudson, Michigan,
think so.
I think.
Yeah.
So there isn't really much going on at the RenCen. It's more of a symbolic building anymore for General Motors. So you hope that they find a way to repurpose the Renaissance Center, because it is a beautiful complex and it definitely adds some punch to that race. I mean, other than the RenCen, there isn't a lot of eye-popping things that pop out on the Detroit race course.
You know,
not a lot.
The thing I struggle is the camera angle on pit lane is great, but then with the hairpin turn, they need a camera like behind that stand, because I think it looks good from that angle, but they aren't showing that
right
on the broadcast.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I agree.
Like, I think that's part of the problem. I just think that, and I mean, it's just like a concrete canyon. Like, there are parking garages. Like, the Detroit River shots are cool. The RenCen shots are cool, but that's about it.
But then they got a bunch of...
Is it aesthetically pleasing? No. Has it put on entertaining races? I would argue yes.
Yes. I mean, part of the course, let's just say this, part of the course looks like how you envision Detroit looking. That's not fair to the city, because there are very nice parts of Detroit.
Yeah.
RenCen is Exhibit A.
Yes.
But portions of the track are what you think of when you think of Detroit. It's just it's not good. So,
but it's raced well.
So that's why the importance of the RenCen, and hopefully with the extension of the race there downtown, I hope the Renaissance Center isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Portions of it could be taken down, but it's such a cool shot. Every shot they'd come back showing the RenCen in the back. Like, it's just cool.
It is very cool.
So losing that would be big, because there's nothing else other than the river that really catches your eye on that course.
Yeah, Belle Isle had the advantage of the overhead shots were always stunning.
True.
It's
on an island. That's cool.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, a few other things to get to before we get to tweets of the week and wrap it up. Depend sponsored Connor Daly. They were on his car for Detroit after he admitted to peeing in the car, which people acted like was a big deal, as if race car drivers haven't done that before. But also they will be on his helmet through the end of the year. So that's that per Adam Stern. Last time American drivers took the top 3 starting spots for an IndyCar street race, the second Belle Isle race in 2019. And it was actually the top 4 spots on the grid.
So Ray Hall?
2019.
No, 2019. Herta?
He was fourth.
Okay.
You're never going to guess who was third.
I'm never going to guess who was third.
Never going to guess.
Buddy Rice.
No.
Joseph Newgarden.
He was on pole.
So he was first. Okay. Alexander Rossi.
Second.
And then I will never get it.
You will never get it. Zach Veach.
I would not have got it.
That courtesy of For the Love of Indy on that stat. Elsewhere, IndyCar moving up plans for an independent officiating board now set to be in place for 2026. Racer.com article on that. Which, again, all this as expected.
Smart.
Zach Brown, media discussions, wants smaller fields and more investment in the series.
He said it nicely, but basically Penske, not just Roger, but Penske Corp has almost unlimited money. And to make money, sometimes you have to invest money. And I thought he made a good point, is the Vegas Grand Prix makes zero money for Formula One in terms of the race.
Yes.
But what it does is it raises the profile of Formula One, and it presents the sport, the series, to a different audience in Vegas, and sponsorship goes up crazy for the series, for the teams. And basically his point is, if you raise the value of the teams, you raise the value of the league, and everybody wins.
And that was even after a very tough first year for the Vegas GP, not in terms of the race, but in terms of practice sessions and street closures and all the infighting with that, and they pulled it off.
Now, an extension is not in place yet for beyond 2025 at Vegas, but it is expected to be done. And the more you have those races in Vegas, the more it just becomes part of the culture and not as big of a deal when you start closing stuff off. It's just, it's GP time. It's time to close up some roads. But that's one thing we know that Roger Penske's refused to do, is invest a lot of money into the series.
Done it with the Speedway.
And to be fair, he needed to make the Speedway financially solvent, or rather the series financially solvent, before he could really... basically, he's still trying to make sure that the series makes money, and it's just not siphoning money off the Indy 500 and IMS. And I still think that's a challenge. But Zach Brown's going, hey, if you want to make that happen, start doing some really huge events and be okay with losing some money, but raising the profile of the Speedway. We don't know, or of the series. We're not exactly sure the financials to do with Arlington, but I think that's a good first step. Mexico City would be another step. I think Denver would be another step.
Yeah. But then you need to kind of go beyond that. And the first series to ever pull off a street race in New York City or Philly or Boston. And I'm going to throw another one out here. So IndyCar obviously has Portland, but what about Seattle?
Seattle, yeah. Especially with Portland being not a big revenue generator. It's not very popular with the drivers, and there's not a lot of people that go. Would Seattle be interested in a road or a street race?
The downside is street races are very expensive. They take several years to recoup on the investment, and they're volatile as events.
Yeah, and the bigger the city, the more red tape you have to jump through. And remember this, though, because we talked about if Honda leaves, how much money that's going to cost Penske Corp. And we know one thing about Roger Penske. He has not allocated new money into IndyCar very much, if any, since he took over. So as IndyCar has gotten more and more into the promoting races game, if they all of a sudden have to spend tens of millions of dollars for engines, that money isn't going to be new money. It's going to be reallocated money. And so that is definitely going to hurt IndyCar in terms of its promotional abilities, not just with the existing races, but future races. If we're looking at a Mexico City, if we're looking at a Detroit or a Denver, and anything else, is all of a sudden that may be put to a stop in terms of IndyCar throwing money in, because, hey, that money we need to take now and get engines. And so that's a storyline that hasn't been covered much yet, but will, if Honda does decide to leave, is this isn't going to be new money to support the engine program within IndyCar in Elmore. It's going to be the same money taken from somewhere else.
Think about it like this. Honda in 2023 sponsored 3 races: Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach, Mid-Ohio, and then Honda Indy Toronto. Now they're down to 1 because it's just the Ontario Honda dealers sponsoring Toronto.
Yeah, it's not even HMD or was it Honda?
HRC.
HRC, yes. I work on my acronyms. They're not even sponsored. It's just the dealers in Ontario, the Honda dealers. So is it a further sign of Honda's imminent exit?
Elsewhere, here's a fun stat. We were talking about Penske. Nick Yeoman, IndyCar Radio. All 3 Team Penske NASCAR drivers, 4 if you count Josh Berry, have won Cup races in 2025 before any of the Penske IndyCar drivers.
Oof.
Yeah. Hard to believe. The AJ Foyt Racing Team's Homes for Our Troops campaign raised $4.7 million.
It's a lot of money. Great program. Good job.
Very, very cool there. And then a sad note, Ed Carpenter Racing posting that Ed Del Porte has passed away after a battle with pancreatic cancer back on June 3rd. One of the original employees for ECR there since the first race. He was an electronics engineer. Team statement going on to say he was an integral part of our ECR family. Attended 13 Indy 500s before working 30. This year was his 31st. And said we were honored he was able to help us prepare for one more 500.
Tough. I mean, a reasonably young dude, what, in his 50s, early 50s maybe?
Yeah.
So cancer sucks, and it really hit ECR hard last week.
All right, tweets of the week time, and we have a lot.
All right.
A lot to
Let's
get
go.
to. So let's go back. And first off, Marco Andretti, road rage and IndyCars aren't a good pair. Kyle Kirkwood said, "This is without a doubt the most absurd thing I've had happen to me at a racetrack," and followed that up with Will Plower.
A name that stuck through the weekend.
Jeff Cerneski on the incident said he wasn't trying to wreck him, just rattle his cage. Dale Earnhardt.
Which I've heard that. I haven't watched it yet, the Earnhardt documentary.
I haven't watched it either. Everyone
Prime.
raving about it,
Yeah.
though. So I need to check that out as well. Adding that to my viewing. Scott McLaughlin had posted, misjudged this one, talking about punting Nolan Siegel. Old mate broke quite a bit earlier than I anticipated. Good to see McLaren team principals are still on the hunt for beef. Good Ranchers has loads for you. Use code BREAKLATER for 0% off. And then Tony Kanaan said...
So explain the looking for beef, or exploring beef, like it was just a play on his sponsor, but was also a dig at somebody or a team?
Yeah, I mean, a dig at Tony Kanaan, obviously. The McLaren...
But it's like, where'd that come from? I don't know.
I don't know. And then Kanaan said, misjudged last week, talking about the Indy 500. Misjudged this week, talking about Detroit. At least you get a weekend off to square that away. I came looking for your team principal to have a chat, but I couldn't find him. Oh, wait.
So funny.
And then McLaughlin said, our team principals aren't usually on Twitter during the race, but you've got my phone number, mate. So, Callum Eilat said, not ideal. I was having a wheelie good race. His wheel came off. Thought that was clever. Joey Barnes, 85. It's almost like thorough inspections just started 3 weeks ago. And then Kyle Kirkwood posted this today, a Thursday as we record. A big day today, and it's that Brian Herta finally followed him on Twitter.
Did see that, and then he followed up by saying he's just on a probationary basis.
Yeah, provisionally following you. Let's see how the next few races go. Thought that was fun.
Also, did we get to the end, to the issue of Colton Herta calling out Alexander Rossi?
I have no idea what that's about.
He missed the
IndyCar memes guy.
That would always do stuff about Rossi, and then Rossi retweeted and put WTF did I do?
Yeah.
Question mark.
Yeah.
So we never did figure out what was going on there. Former teammates now apparently beefing about something. If you're gonna beef, make it plain what you're beefing about. That's the least you can do if you're gonna do it on social media. Come on, we need the whole story.
No, we need more hashtag cryptic like PT. Throwing it way back.
Yeah.
And then one final tweet, Colton Herta tweeting Bing Bong, tagging Scott McLaughlin.
Yee.
Pacers beating the Knicks.
Scott McLaughlin was supposed to throw out the first pitch at the St. Louis Cardinals game last night, and that was postponed. They're doing a doubleheader today. I don't think he's doing it today. I think maybe he was getting ready to test at Milwaukee or was testing in Milwaukee today potentially, but That's unfortunate, but trying to bring some attention to the race coming up next week, Gateway.
Should be a good one. All right. Random split error driver of the week time.
All right. So this is a familiar name to everybody, but maybe people don't know the story of this man's racing career. Mike Shank.
Hey.
How about that? I didn't realize he only did one IndyCar race.
I didn't know he did any IndyCar races.
He did for Nine House Motorsports in 96-97 season of IndyCar in a Riley and Scott Oldsmobile in the second Vegas race. He was 16th in that race. That was, of course, the initial season, the conclusion of the initial season, right? And let's see.
Well, the second season. Right?
Interestingly,
the first one was 3 races.
Right. Interestingly,
so
30. So the first season was 3 races. The second season was across 2 years, correct? And they finally got it right with year 3. But this race actually had 31 drivers in it for the season finale at Vegas, and that was the one and only race, Michael Shank. So born and raised in Columbus, Ohio, and he did a couple years in the 90s in SCCA. So basically like what are those? For like 2000 cars, like Atlantics, basically.
Yeah.
That's what it was. And did that in 1988 and 1994. But his one and only race in the IRL or any open wheel championship in the United States was that one race, Vegas 2 in 1997. It concluded that season that who won that year? Stewart?
Tony Stewart.
Yeah, that's right.
Championship.
Tony Stewart. And that was it. One and done. He then did, that was the Las Vegas 500K at Vegas. And after that, he got into dealer ownership and then, of course, car ownership and got involved with Sam Hornish Jr. and won the Formula Atlantic Championship in 1999. The rest is history. Now, of course, a full-time entry in the IndyCar Series, won the Indianapolis 500 with Elio Castroneves. But it all started, you could say, on a late fall day in 1997 at Vegas. His one and only start in the IRL. Mike Shank, this week's Random Split Era Driver of the Week.
All right, that does it for us. We'll be back next week to talk the latest and greatest in IndyCar, plus a special guest for
Really?
Justin Kinney. Yes.
I don't even know that.
Yeah. I forgot to tell you.
I think
we
it's a special guest co-host.
No.
Replacement co-host. Okay.
No. Special guest joining us as well for Justin Kinney. I am Caleb Hatch. This has been New Track Record Podcast.